And that something just might change your life and actually make a damn difference in my life.
You're going to want to pay attention to this one.
Hey everybody, David Niggle. You're going to love this episode.
Before we press record, we're talking a little bit about this book, and I had mixed feelings about this book when it first came out.
They were a little towards the not so mixed. It was more like, I don't like it.
It's true. It triggered me in so many ways. We can talk a little bit about that here shortly. But for this episode in particular that we're going inside, you did pull from Tim Grover's 2014 book, Relentless.
Yeah.
And from the moment that book was released and you became aware of it, it became a part of your library, and you've referenced it many times over. Yeah. What was it that stood out to what Grover was writing in that book?
Well, the part about it that I thought was so fantastic was that we really didn't have an inside look into Jordan's mindset. I mean, there's been talk for years,
sure,
but nobody ever really went deep inside. And here's a guy who was part of his training team for a long time, had an insight into the way he thought. It's an insight of the way Tim thinks, Kobe, so many athletes that he worked with. That was the first intriguing thing to me, because you're talking about athletes that are beyond exceptional. Right? These are once-in-a-lifetime type athletes. These are people who go above and beyond the normal success that we would consider at the top,
sure,
and start to break down how they're thinking. So am I answering your question? Mm-hmm. That's what intrigued
Totally.
me. Like I was like, like this is gold mine stuff.
What are some of the parallels that you see between, say, an elite athlete like a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant or a Dwayne Wade into, say, the entrepreneur who's listening to this podcast right now? Because I feel like there are parallels.
Well, I think that one of the main ideas is that these people that are the elite athletes, and of course, if you take that and you compare it to an elite entrepreneur, right? Not just any entrepreneur, but an elite entrepreneur. There is a very deep, almost not understandable or incomprehensible desire for the outcome that they're looking for. I think that's one of the main parallels, because I've studied success in every place that it exists, and it's always the same story. First of all, there's this desire to be, do, or have something that is absolutely spectacular, to the point of an obsession. It's not just like, hey, this would be great, or this would be cool, or let me try this. This is day and night, night and day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year commitment to being excellent at basically one thing, right? And when you look at somebody who is a magnificent entrepreneur, you find that they have the same dedication, the same desire, the same relentless focus on what that outcome is that they want. And everything is about bettering your best. It's just getting better and better and better and better at what you do to be the best that there ever was or ever will be type of a mindset. I think on the surface, when you first crack that egg, those are the two things that definitely come together there.
And that reminds me, the parallel I drew from that was just being your word and always doing a little bit more. You've talked about, go a little further each and every time, better your best. So when I heard that, I thought it's just like being your word, the great, 4 agreements.
If you let's say you have any one thing that you do that you're really good at, and every day you give it your best, your best, your best, your best. That's a great idea, but there's no growth in that. There's no growth until you go beyond your best. Right. The growth happens at one step beyond the best. If you're doing curls with, dumbbells, right? And you do 10 a day, 10 a day, 10 a day, the growth is on the 11th one. It's not in the first 10, So we have to go beyond what's comfortable in order for that growth to actually happen. And that's what he's pointing out there. They know this. They know that their next level goes beyond what's comfortable mentally, psychologically, physically, even emotionally.
Yeah, huge distinction. I love that mental thought about You know you're going to do 10, so you start thinking around 7 and 8 that you're going to stop. It's so true. And in life, in business, in exercise,
Yeah.
if I'm going for a 6-mile run, I don't start getting tired until mile 5. If I go for a 3-mile run, I start getting tired at 2. It's just so interesting that your mind runs the machine. So you got to be careful not to listen to it. you know?
Because if you listen to the mind, it'll stop you and you won't get to where it is. It's really weird that it works that way. But there's a lot of things that I've taught entrepreneurs for a long time, that most people are raised with the idea built into their life. When do I get to stop doing the thing that's uncomfortable? From a baby, right? Here's what you have to do every day. When do I get to stop? It starts in grade schools. When's recess? When do we get out? When there's spring break? When's summer vacation? How many personal days do I get when I go to work for somebody else? How many sick days do I get? When is the week over? So there's this whole cycle. I don't know where this comes from, but I think it's just the idea of people will be willing to do something uncomfortable for a certain period of time as long as they know when they get to quit. These people think differently. It's also one of the things. You see the same kind of psychology with Navy SEALs.
Sure.
They are all about going longer, doing more than their mind thinks they can actually do, so that they give themselves the experience of getting to that next level, which allows their talent to expand.
Well, when the spotlight shines brightest on them, whether they're on a very covert operation in the Middle East or whether a guy's stepping on a basketball court, they've already put in the hard work. They've already done it.
Right.
They just need to go out there and play and play the game. So, yeah, that's great. All right, next one on his list is you get into the zone. You shut out everything else and control the uncontrollable. So I love the conversation about the zone. It's such a fascinating place to be, and very few people ever get there. What mindset does a person need to have to control the uncontrollable? I love how he puts that in there.
I think this is this weird thing that the mind does. When you repeat something over and over and over and over again, where it's literally ingrained in your mind and your nervous system, and it goes on autopilot, it can operate faster than your conscious thought can process. So when you see these people that are in the zone, they're literally working at a level that is not consciously processing as fast as they're able to do the things that they're actually doing. And musicians the same way, right? They memorize the notes, the chords, the finger movements, all the different things that they have to do. But once it's ingrained in them and they get into that flow, that's when the music happens. This is when the ball game comes. But now here's the other thing. They're also able to respond faster to what's happening on the court than a person who's actually thinking about it. And most of the players are sitting there thinking, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? And they see the patterns happening before they actually complete, and they're able to respond ahead of time.
Well, as we speak, Tim Grover's new book, which is titled Winning, The Unforgiving Race to Greatness, was just released today as this drops. And I know my copy's at home waiting for me, and I know your audio version is sitting on your phone right here. I'm sure you'll be diving into your latest work, and maybe we could revisit that once it's all in there.
Absolutely.
But for those who have yet to maybe read Relentless, why should they stop and do that right now in order to help them move forward?
Because it's one of the greatest, most succinct, no bullshit, no frill, no fluff books on success that's ever been written, period. Hands down. I don't know that it will be, but it should be a classic like Think and Grow Rich, because it is like Tim stripped away all the BS and he gave you exactly what it is.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to hear, but that's the kind of tough love that he's made people even more elite than they were, and that's something you should listen to.
You are in a room with David Nagel, and we are talking about how to let spirit lead in your business. All right, so there's also this question especially with a lot of people that we work with. What is spirit? A lot of people hear God and they have a negative reaction to it. So in your, how would you define that?
First of all, I think we should understand that we are a soul. We don't have a soul. We are a soul. We are a spiritual, all-knowing, all-intelligent entity that lives in a physical body. We're having a human experience. And spirit is like if you think about a tree and you think about the tree being either God or the universe, because here's the thing about me, Steph. I'm not really into telling people what to believe in as far as God or universe or spirit or energy. I think that whatever word works for you so that you have the ability to use it and move forward, that's a good word. What's unfortunate is that many people they hear words like God, and their only correlation in their mind is to some religious upbringing that they were familiar with, and they have a tendency not to be able to separate man's idea of what God is from what God's idea of what God is. So we project our idea of God and make God more man-like or woman-like, and not in the essence of what the overarching spirit of the universe is, which is all of us at the exact same time, in the same place, having individual experience. But it's all intelligent, it's all loving, it's all knowing. It is us, and it is seeking to have an experience in the reality that we're currently living in life.
The big question that we always get is, how does someone tell the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of spirit?
Good question. Okay, so with the premise that everything in the universe is for more life, then anything that would appear not to add to life is not of spirit. In other words, it is something else that we're hearing other than spirit, or a different voice put over spirit. So let's take fear, because fear is a great example. Fear tells us what not to do. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that fear is bad. Fear can be both good and bad. It depends on why and how you're experiencing it. But spirit never speaks through fear. Spirit doesn't tell you what not to do. It always tells you what to do. And of course, when a person is first learning this, it can be a little bit difficult in their mind, because there seem to be subtleties that kind of go along with it when you're actually hearing it. And especially if somebody's highly intuitive, they'll say, well, David, my intuition's always telling me not to do something. Then one of the things that I do with somebody like that is to be like, really break this down. Is it really your intuition that you're hearing, or it is the voice of somebody else in your head, and you're misunderstanding it as intuition? Because intuition and spirit are always telling us what direction to go in, what to do, not what not to do. Fear and other people's voices and ideas in our mind tell us what not to do. That's not spirit. So spirit will always tell you what to do, Steph.
All right. So we understand kind of the pitfalls of this, right? There's like steps. You have to learn how to listen to the voice, and then when the voice tells you what to do, you have to do it without knowing every single one of the steps. We have to risk. Right. You have to take a risk. You have to risk making a mistake or feeling like a failure or whatever. But I want to go back to, how do you listen to the internal voice that's guiding you? If we're not ever taught how to listen to it, how do we actually learn to listen to it?
Well, very often the voice inside of us is speaking quietly. It's not like this huge voice that is screaming. All the noise that we have in our head, for the most part, is not spirit. The primary voice that spirit speaks through is desire. Desire comes from the Latin root of the father of the stars, and it is the internal evidence of the verification that there is a plan and a purpose and a motive and a direction from God or the universe or spirit. What is interesting about that is that it gets very confused through multiple ways that people teach things, that it's a bad thing, that like desire is not a good thing. And it's more the wishing, the wanting, the things that we cultivate in our mind out of fear, those emotions that kind of go in that direction. Those things are generally not the best. But the specific question you're asking is, how do we listen to it? We listen to it by paying attention to our desire. The thing that we want to be, do, or have that's inside of us, that is Spirit speaking to you.